This is Star TV News here from our studios, and I am Ajaka Desanya. In the headlines tonight, Gambia President vows to punish traffickers after boat disaster. Gambia backway survivors on their way home to reunite with their families. President Barrow to register political party this month, launching in 2020. Commissioner Manjang of CRC raises concern over poor turnout of youths. On the international scene, thousands seek shelter near Tripoli. Anti-government protesters buried in Guinea. India to table controversial citizenship bill in parliament. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. President Adama Barrow says probe launched as the nation mourns national disaster that saw dozens of people drowning off Mauritania. Gambia's president is vowing to punish people traffickers after dozens of Gambians died in the shipwreck of Mauritania's coast. They were trying to reach Spain's Canary Islands. At least 85 people survived and were brought ashore. Maimuna Juf reports.
In an address to the nation, President Adama Barrow bemoaned the boat accident involving Gambians off the coast of Mauritania as a national tragedy that requires criminal investigation.
Fellow Gambians, I join you in mourning the tragic death of our youth off the coast of Mauritania last Wednesday, when their boat capsized at sea. Latest information reaching my office states that 60 people are now confirmed dead. My heartfelt condolences go to the bereaved families as the entire nation goes through this most painful life experience.
To lose 60 lives at sea is a national tragedy and a matter of grave concern to my government. A full police investigation has been launched to get to the bottom of this serious national disaster. The culprits will be prosecuted according to the law, he said.
To lose 60 young lives at sea is a national tragedy and a matter of grave concern to my government. A full police investigation has been launched to get to the bottom of this serious national disaster. The culprits will be prosecuted according to law.
Disclosing that the latest information gathered thus far puts the number of deaths at 60. The president expressed heartfelt condolences to the brave families as the entire nation goes through what he described as the most painful life experience. Although we are still gathering information about the identities of the victims, what is clear as of now is that the boat that capsized originated from Barra, North Bank region, carrying more than 150 men and women, he stated. The government's response has been swift, with a team of high-level officials being mobilized immediately. They are tasked with unrevealing the facts of the matter, provide background information on the victims, as well as investigate the circumstances leading to the tragedy.
A high-level government delegation has been dispatched to Mauritania. They are working with local authorities and our embassy staff currently in the Mauritanian city of Nouadhibou, where the accident happened, to provide support to the victims and participate in the recovery efforts. My government has already dispatched funds to Mauritania to cater for the immediate needs of the survivors admitted to hospital and to plan for their repatriation to the Gambia.
For the purpose of rapid response to such situations, my government has already established a national centralized coordinating center comprising cabinet ministers, heads of security agencies, critical stakeholders, and specialized institutions mandated to deal with such emergencies, the president added. A high-level government delegation has been dispatched to Mauritania to work with local authorities and the Gambia embassy staff in Nouadhibou city in Mauritania, where the incident happened. They will provide support to the victims and participate in recovery efforts. As a way forward, President Barrow said advocacy efforts against irregular migration and the associated dangers will be reinforced in order to encourage youths to use legal, acceptable means to travel outside the country. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Maimuna Juf.
A migrant boat carrying 195 passengers that launched from Barra last month sank off the coast of Mauritania on 4th December after it ran out of fuel. 13 women were on board the boat, out of which 11 died. Binta Koli files in this report.
The International Organization for Migration in a statement on Friday said 78 Gambians that survived the shipwreck were receiving humanitarian aid. The source revealed on Saturday the survivors has been put on a bus and are traveling back to the Gambia. They will be received by a police task force that will later hand them to the Gambia Immigration Department, the source added. Wednesday's incident is the biggest backway tragedy to have rocked the country in years. On Saturday, President Adama Barrow addressed the nation announcing that a full police investigation has been launched to get to the bottom of this serious national disaster. The culprits will be prosecuted according to law, the president said. Meanwhile, in a statement on Friday, IOM said its team in Mauritania is focusing on helping migrants recover from shock, providing appropriate medical treatment and providing first aid kits, blankets and other supplies. It added a member of IOM's mental health and psychosocial support team in the Gambia departed for Mauritania on Friday, 6 December to support the local response. A total of 85 survivors are accounted for, including 7 Senegalese, while the death roll has risen to 62. IOM is coordinating with Mauritanian authorities and Gambian Consular Service to provide assistance to survivors. Additionally, IOM is in touch with the Gambia Red Cross Society as well as the international community of the Red Cross in Mauritania on linking families who believe their loved ones were aboard the boat. Binta Koli, Star TV News.
The Gambia leader, President Adama Barrow, has announced he would launch his own political party in 2020. Barrow made this announcement at a meeting in Banjul marking the end of his Meet the People tour. Zainab Jasi reports.
Having trekked the length and breadth of the country to engage with the people, President Barrow have decided to register his political party to contest presidential election. The message from Barrow to Wuli, Koina to Banjul had been clear. The development works my government has been spearheading are greatly appreciated by the people of the Gambia. I therefore respond to their calls to run for office. Barrow came to power on the backing of 7 political parties, including 3 independent candidates. He defeated former President Yahya Jammeh, a dictator who ruled Gambia with an iron fist for 22 years. However, barely a year into the coalition government, the Gambian leader began having problems with his partners. About 3 years on, the coalition collapsed. Meanwhile, Barrow has agreed to serve a 3-year transitional government and resigned to organize an election in which he would not contest. However, the Gambian leader has failed to honor that promise, arguing that his fate would be decided by the people. 2 key coalition partners, United Democratic Party and People's Democratic Party for Independence and Socialism, have urged Barrow to honor his agreement with the coalition. However, majority of the coalition stakeholders, though largely smaller Gambian parties, are with the president in violation of his agreement. Senabu Jase, Star TV News.
Government spokesperson Ibrahim Sankare has slammed reports suggesting President Adama Barrow was nursing the idea of former President Yahya Jammeh returning to the country from exile. More on this with Maimuna Juf.
Former President Jammeh has since January 2017 been living in exile in Equatorial Guinea following his humiliating defenestration in 2016 presidential election after over 20 years in office. But at a meeting in Sibano, President Barrow, Jammeh's nemesis, said the former dictator can come back to the Gambia and live like everyone else. His time is over and he will not come back as president. This country is his country, but he can come back and live like everyone else. That can happen. But for him to be president of the country, that will not happen again, Mr. Barrow said. Gambians later pounced to interpret the president's comments, with many saying he was planning to allow Jammeh to return to the Gambia. Government spokesperson Ibrahim Sankare spoke on Saturday on the the issue, saying President Barrow's comments were purely hypothetical. Mr. Barrow told Gambians that even if President Jammeh were to return to the Gambia someday, he could never again be president and could only live as an ordinary citizen and nothing else. Mr. Barrow offered no protection, nor any privileges whatsoever, as it's been banded around social media and some news outlets. It is totally false and very unfortunate that such a direct statement is deliberately mischaracterized for purely political reasons, Sankara said in a statement. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Maimuna Juf.
During an interview with Star TV in Basse, Commissioner Yankuba Manjang of the Constitutional Review Commission has raised concerns over the poor turnout of youths in the second phase of the CRC public consultations. After the release of the draft constitution, the CRC embarks on this consultation to afford the people the opportunity to propose recommendations for incorporation into the draft constitution. More from Bintokoli.
Speaking to this medium, Commissioner Manjan said he is disappointed over the low turnout of young people in all the communities the CRC held consultations. Most of the people who attended the consultations are elderly people. Manjan stressed that he expected the youths to turn out in their numbers to share their views on the draft, but he has been proven otherwise so far. On what they have done to ensure youths participate fully, Commissioner Manjan said a note was sent to the Youth Council to ensure the full participation of youths towards the draft so that their voices are heard. Manjan further that if youths come out to share their views, it will make a huge difference in the final constitution. Commissioner Manjan revealed that the excuse given by youths that they were not aware of the second phase of the public consultation is bogus. He confirmed that a retreat was held for over 200 youths before the consultation started in order to ensure full participation by the young ones. Most of the people who commented on the minimum age for presidency are elders. Therefore, they suggested that the minimum age limit should be 40 instead of 30. This could prevent many young ones from taking up leadership, especially the presidency, when that is inculcated in the final constitution. Reporting for Star TV News, I am Bintakul.
And now news beyond our borders. Nearly 130,000 people have been displaced by fighting near the Libyan capital. The 8-month-long battle for control of Tripoli has created a housing crisis. Some displaced families are demanding the government to provide compensation for their destroyed homes. Al Jazeera's Mahmoud Abdel Wahid reports from Tripoli.
These state-owned apartments in central Tripoli have now become a makeshift shelter for families who fled the war on the southern outskirts of the Libyan capital. They say they cannot afford to rent a house. Nylon sheets used as cover give little protection from the wind and dust. Even providing light for families in distress is beyond many here. Others use a wood fire to cook and keep themselves warm during the cold weather. For these children, it's a tough place to grow up. But their parents say it's much safer than the area they left behind, which faced random rocket attacks.
Heavy fighting has forced us out of our homes. Rockets were landing in our area near the old airport.
They rely on donations for food. Some search for what fits them from these donated clothes. Nadia Bel'eid says her house in the Ain Zara neighborhood in southern Tripoli is now in the middle of a battlefield. She now shares this open space with 3 other families.
We have been waiting for the war to end, but it hasn't. We have nowhere to go. You cannot rent a house for less than $500 a month. My husband is on a pension and my son is sick. We take shelter in our being together with the other families here, but sometimes it rains upon us.
Forces loyal to the UN-recognized government in Tripoli have been resisting an offensive by those loyal to the warlord Khalifa Haftar. The 8-month battle for control has taken a toll on civilians. Hundreds have been killed or wounded by random fire or airstrikes. Nearly 130,000 people have left their homes. Some displaced families live with their relatives. Others left the country. A number of schools have turned into a makeshift shelter. And with the arrival of winter, those who live here in this unfinished compound are worried
the situation could get worse.
Over the past 7 years, several housing projects have been halted by political division and a lack of security. And the high number of internally displaced people has created a huge demand for housing.
Rent prices started increasing when the war started in the east of the country in 2014 because most of the displaced people moved to Tripoli. Since the war spread westward in April, landlords have been doubling prices because there are no cost controls.
The displaced families have been protesting, demanding the government provide compensation for their destroyed houses. Nadia says other people who were not displaced took advantage of the chaos and occupied apartments in this compound. But as the fighting gets closer to the city center, the number of displaced people is likely to rise, and vulnerable people like Nadia will face more tough days ahead. Mahmoud Abdul Wahid, Al Jazeera, Tripoli.
Funerals have been held for a group of protesters who rallied against the president of Guinea. Despite the killings, opposition leaders say demonstration against President Alpha Condé will continue. Al Jazeera's Katia Lopez Hodayan reports.
The coffins of 8 men are carried along the streets of Guinea's capital. Opposition leaders say they were killed by security forces for speaking out against President Alpha Condé and his government. 3 of them were shot dead during funerals for fellow protesters. The youngest was 15 years old.
We are here to bury our children. They are killing them. Even when we are out within our rights to protest, they come out and kill us. We are tired of this government.
The killings reflect the power struggle between Guinea's security forces and anti-government protesters. Tens of thousands have taken to the streets in the past 2 months. Led by the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, they are against President Condé's plan to change the Constitution, which would allow him to seek a 3rd term next year. The 81-year-old has been in power for 9 years.
They went out to oppose a change to the Constitution. They're opposed to a 3rd term for President Condé, but they were shot while protesting.
Government leaders say the people should have the option of voting to extend Condé's presidency. Several opposition leaders have been jailed for organizing protests, but despite the killings, demonstrations have continued.
Things need to change. They need to change for our youth and all the innocent people who have been killed. One can't imagine what it feels like.
The government is promising to investigate the killings, but the opposition says that's not enough. The protests, they say, will continue. Katia Lopez Odoyan, Al Jazeera.
The BJP government of India has proposed the Citizenship Amendment Bill that will grant citizenship to religious minorities from Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan, but excludes Muslims from those countries. Muslim families in India are worried the new law will grant citizenship to thousands of non-Muslims from neighboring countries, while Muslim families are being rendered stateless. This is in light of foreigners' tribunals that have declared hundreds of thousands of people to be non-Indian in spite of their deep roots in the country that extend back for generations. Al Jazeera's Anshal Vohra explains.
Manik Jan is relieved to be back home, but remains haunted by the 4 years and 4 months she spent in a detention center. The Foreigners Tribunal, which has the job of identifying illegal migrants, sent her there. But Manik insists she is an Indian citizen and produces several documents to prove it. She says she was born in India and her father and grandfather too.
I distinctly remember those days in the detention camp. How can I ever forget? It was like I was inside a grave. That's the space I had, just that much.
Her neighbor, Ashida Bibi, says her husband died when she was in the detention center. She breaks down as she recalls not being allowed to attend his funeral. While people convicted of serious crimes are eligible for parole, people sent to these detention centers are not. Ali Akbar spent 3 years in a detention center. because he says his name had been misspelled in a government document.
There
was just a tiny gap between the beds, so when we carried a bucket of water to go to the toilet and spilled even a drop, the convicts would beat us.
The Foreigners' Tribunals have declared over 100,000 people as illegal foreigners and sent nearly 1,000 to languish in detention centres until they are deported. But activists say no country can be expected to accept them because a large majority, if not all, are Indian citizens. Nearly 2 million people in Assam are missing from a recently released list of Indian citizens. Their fate will be decided by the tribunals, judgments which are often criticized. Nearly everyone in these villages now has a well-kept pile of documents to prove that they in fact are Indian citizens. But many here accuse the Foreigners' Tribunals, the first authority to determine their status, of ordering wrongful detentions. India's government is preparing to pass a citizenship amendment bill which would grant citizenship to Hindu migrants but not Muslims. Activists say the government intends to target the minority community.
They want to convert India as no man's land. Everybody can come, everybody can go. We are a nation and we are trying to become, transform from this so-called soft nation to the hard nation.
Manik Jan and Ashida are terrified, as are many other Muslims. They think that while Bengalis who are Hindu may be saved by the Hindu-majority Indian government, Muslims will be systematically made stateless. Anchal Vora, Al Jazeera, Assam, India.
Israel is being accused of torturing a Palestinian prisoner. Samir Abid was being questioned about an attack in the occupied West Bank, which left one Israeli dead. Now, Abid's family fears for his life. Al Jazeera's Nida Ibrahim reports from occupied West Bank.
Noura Arbid doesn't know exactly what happened to her husband after Israel arrested him in September. But 2 days after his arrest, he was taken to hospital with kidney failure and 11 broken ribs. His lawyers say Israel's security agency, the Shin Bet, severely tortured him. The Shin Bet told Al Jazeera that Samer said he didn't feel well during interrogation, so they transferred him to hospital but didn't give more details. Noura was only allowed to see him once, plugged to machines. Now she has more questions than answers.
My daughter Googled his name. She thinks we're hiding information from her. She asked me, what does it mean that my dad is in a critical condition? I told her these are all rumors and that he is strong.
Samer's relatives and loved ones say they only have prayers to offer. The Israeli military court rejected requests for an early release. The Shin Bet says he's behind an attack that killed 17-year-old Israeli woman Rina Schnurb in August.
The Israeli Supreme Court has outlawed torture in 1999, but it allowed the use of physical pressure in some cases during interrogation. The aim is to get information they say could prevent future attacks. But critics say that some of those measures amount to torture.
Under exceptional circumstances, what's known as the necessity defense or the ticking bomb scenario, if an interrogator uses certain methods, he cannot be charged. He's exempt from criminal prosecution.
Lu'ay Ashqar says he's been disabled since Israeli security agents tortured him in 2005. He says he was forced to sit in a position where his spine was bent backwards for 3 days.
Every time I felt unconscious, they would wake me up, check on me, then handcuff me again and bend my spine. The handcuffs were made of iron, and interrogators closed them so tight on my hand that I felt like they were pressing on my nerve. The marks are still there.
Lu'ay was released from jail after serving 26 months for helping wanted Palestinians. He filed a case listing his torture claims, but withdrew it after he was later arrested without charge. The Israeli Committee Against Torture says out of 1,200 cases brought against the Shin Bet for torture, not one has led to an indictment. Nida Ibrahim, Al Jazeera, the occupied West Bank.
And before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. Gambia's president vows to punish traffickers after a boat disaster. Gambia backway survivors on their way home to reunite with their families. President Barrow to register political party this month, launching in 2020. Commissioner Menjang of CRC raises concerns over poor turnout of youth. That's all for this edition of the news. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and join us tomorrow for more news. Thank you.